Hello and welcome to Stretford Paddock. This is the Paddock Podcast. My name is Joe. That is Jay Motti. And we're just going to be talking football today, aren't we?
Football.
We're talking United, okay? Because that's what we're here to do. Nothing else has happened. We will have our official response to the weekend's events coming out tomorrow. So we're not going to be talking about that. And if we do, you know, we're allowed to do that as well. But this isn't going to be wallowing. This isn't us going to be sat here making excuses. We will release our official response to the weekend's events tomorrow evening. So wait out for that. Okay? That's all I'm going to say on it, Jay.
Our official response to the weekend's events. Sounds like some sort of catastrophe's happened. Do you know what I mean?
Are you saying that it hasn't?
Some
Jay?
sort of natural disaster.
I think an unnatural disaster has happened over the weekend.
Well said. Nicely done.
However, we're going to get started with a little bit of United stuff. Because really that's all that matters, isn't it?
The only club that matters in Manchester or anywhere else is United.
Yeah.
That is a fact.
That is true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it shall be said, and that's so it is.
How are you, Jay?
I'm all right. You know what? I'm all right. Yeah. It's a bit weird, but I'm a little bit surprised how unbothered I am. I thought I'd been more gutted and more annoyed, and I'm not. I'm just sort of like, okay. So yeah, fine.
You're fine.
Yeah, I know that sounds like, I didn't like her anyway when your missus left you.
Yeah.
But you know me, I love a rant, love to moan, love to, bring up certain things. But I was just like, yeah, you know what? It would have stung a lot more if that mob from further down the road had done it last year.
Imagine if they'd have done the quadruple. That would have been.
That was unbearable. I don't think I'd be sat here now. Seriously, I don't think I could continue talking about football for.
You'd have just ran into the sea, wouldn't you?
Yeah, and just that's it. Just
Keep
not
swimming.
stopped. We've got some comments as well. Get involved in the chat in the comments. We've got a lot of transfer news to get through, like Joe was saying. So we'll get into all that. I want to hear your opinion on certain deals that we'll be mentioning as well. Aditya Gautam, who's been a member of the academy for 29 months, says football has been destroyed. It's dead. It's done. Right. Okay.
I don't necessarily disagree with that, you know.
You
I don't think it has been destroyed, but I can see a world where in 20 years' time, I don't like football as much as I do now.
I can see that. I can see that
mean?
in like 5 years' time.
Yeah, like there's a path that we are sort of 3 steps down.
Yeah.
That if we get 20 steps down, obviously I'm always going to love Man United. I'm always going to want United to win. But I can see the landscape of football changing so wholesale from what it was when I first loved football to what it is, that it loses some of its joy and its love for me. I could definitely see a world where that happens. Hopefully it doesn't, and I'm not trying to be overly dramatic there, but if it does just become the richest human beings on earth spending their money on something they don't care about for innumerate political reasons, I don't love any part of that.
No.
And I'll struggle to really love any part of that. So we'll see. But hopefully United can start smashing some trophies, and we're going to get there by potentially signing Harry Kane. Now, there's been a lot of reports, Jay, that, and I can see it, it's going to be a tough ask, this.
Yeah.
It goes anywhere from the strongest reports are basically they're not going to sell him to us. They won't consider selling Harry Kane to a Premier League rival. Maybe Real Madrid have got a chance, but even then they're going to have to put up ridiculous money. Yeah. That's one end of it. And the other end is Man United still believe there's a chance to sign Harry Kane. United still have a feeling that this deal can get done. And that has to come from somewhere. You wouldn't think that Ten Hag and United's board, or maybe not the board, but John Murtough and Richard Arnold would be so naive to just completely think that this is off the cards. Completely think that this is still on the cards when it's not. Yeah. But hopefully that sort of faith doesn't lead to a situation where we're sat here in 2 months' time with no new strikers saying, right, the Premier League starts in a few days. We're still really hopeful that Harry Kane can get over the line. Tottenham have bought this guy. Maybe he's a replay. Like, I don't want to be doing that transfer maths with a week to go and United are struggling to put a starting 11 together without having to play Rashford as a number 9. I don't want that situation.
No, I don't even. I think that there's a very real possibility that can happen. Yeah, I'm still not over the January transfer window. I thought that was just so ridiculous that we were fighting on 4 fronts with a good chance of winning 3 of those trophies. Yeah, and we didn't back the manager. I don't want to say we, the board or the owners didn't back the manager. We let him make loan signings because he had no money to spend, and it just infuriates me because I think if we'd have gone out in that January transfer window and gone, I don't know, let's say Even if it was someone like, who's a kid who's out of contract, Saram. Say we'd have thrown some money at his club and gone, look, it's 20 million, we can have him now.
Yeah.
Just the end of the season or whatever. Just someone who's got a bit about them.
Yeah.
Maybe if you wanted a midfielder and you think, okay, Marcel Sabitzer did a decent job when he came in, but maybe if you could have gone out there and bought someone and spent like 30, 40, 50 million on someone who
maybe even a Mason Mount.
Yeah, Mason Mount. Someone like that who could come in and do a job straight away. United could be sat in now with 3 trophies from this season. And City wouldn't have done the treble as well because we'd have won the FA Cup. That is a real possibility. And when you look at what Erik ten Hag had to do, he had to basically have a striker who was on loan from Burnley for a reason. I'm not knocking Wout Weghorst, but let's be realistic. And he had a kid who was from Bayern Munich, which is a very good club. Let's not pretend it isn't. But someone who was new to the Premier League and who also... there's a bit of a question mark. Does he get into your first team? Yeah. Maybe not. Is he better than Fred? Possibly. Yeah. It was very sort of samey. Well, you needed someone who could come in, and the main thing for me is just that striker role. To go into the back end of the season, the business end of the season, without a really proven Premier League striker, have to rely on Marcus Rashford playing down the middle, or try and get a tune out of Anthony Martial for the 1 out of every 3 games that he's fit, it was just ridiculous. It really was. I don't think any manager really could have done much more than what Erik ten Hag did with the tools he was given. No. I don't think that prime Fergie or Pep or whoever could have made that squad we had win loads of trophies this season. I just don't think it's possible because I think there is a limit to what a manager can do with the players at his disposal. And when you look at what our rivals have got and who they've got and what we had to contend with, it was just completely unfair. And like even Arsenal, who are notoriously big spenders, they went out and still spent money in January because they realised they were in a title race. They went out and bought Trossard from Brighton. I'm not saying he's a world beater, but he's a decent player. He's a Premier League proven player and international who's scoring goals. So they brought him in and he did for a little while make a difference to them. So it still annoys me that because we've done it time and time again. You go back to when we got to all those semi-finals under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and we brought in Odi and Ighalo. And we won, what did we win? Nothing. And yet, if you bring in a striker who's mint, you could have beat Chelsea in that semi-final. You could have beat Villarreal, I think it was. Not Villarreal, sorry, Sevilla in that semi-final. Under Solskjaer, in that Europa League. When we got to them semi-finals, we can win some of them. I'm not saying you win them all. Maybe we would have struggled against City still in the Carabao. But we could have got over the line for a trophy. Yeah. And someone like Haaland was available at the time. I think he would have spent that money. But we didn't. And it's the same old story with these owners and this board and the way they approach the manager. It's like, right, you've spent money now, that's your lot. Yeah. Jose had it when he wanted a defender. And it was like, well, you bought Victor Lindelof a year ago. What's that got to do with anything?
And on that, today, there was reports coming out, and they've been talking about it since January, but just to reiterate, we were talking about it before. Fabrizio Romano, obviously, one of the most reliable transfer journalists in the world. I know he gets a bit of stick, but he's still... when he says it, it is usually true. Talking about City going after Josko Gvardiol, who's one of the most impressive and sort of highly regarded up-and-coming centre-backs in the world. I think he's 21, 22 years old. They're going for another centre-back, Jay. Yeah. They have currently got 5 centre-backs in John Stones, Laporte, Diaz, Akanji and Ake. 5 centre-backs who are all excellent or have the capability to be excellent. You would think the weakest 2 of those would be Akanji and Ake, and they've both started almost every game this season, so there's no weak links in that. They've got 5 centre-backs already, and they're all under 30. And he's still going, I need another new top-class centre-back. Like, this idea that, we've signed one of them already, so you don't get another one for 3 or 4 years. Pep signs a centre-back or 2 every single season and has done since he arrived at City. Like, he just gets in a centre-back every year, no matter what. We need to rotate. We need a new one. Imagine if Ten Hag did that. Or like you said, Jose tried to do that and wasn't allowed to.
No.
You get one position and then 3 years later we can revisit it. How long were we waiting for a CDM for? Michael Carrick retired, and let's be honest, was past his best from about 2014, 15. Yeah. He stayed another 2 or 3 years, and we didn't replace him while he was still there. We didn't replace him when he'd left. We got Schneiderlin in, and then that quickly sold him because he proved to be injury prone and not good enough, and then just didn't get another one.
No.
For 5 years, 6 years until Casemiro arrived. Like, do you think that would be allowed to happen at a well-run club? It's unbelievable. And, we'll get to goalkeepers in a minute, and I think, there's a larger conversation to be had there. And And actually, I will save it for then. Let's start with this sort of striking position, a position where we are admittedly, I mean, it's all done through the newspapers, but everything that's coming out of Man United this summer suggests we want a striker and that we want Harry Kane. The Daily Mail today talking about a potential either exchange or deal with Tottenham for Jadon Sancho, and obviously United would try and get Kane the other way. Tottenham are considering a £50 million move for Manchester United winger Jadon Sancho. The 23-year-old was one of the stars of the Bundesliga. I love that, that's 2 years ago. Before United splashed out $73 million to secure his services in the summer of 2021. However, he has so far failed to live up to the price tag, having struggled with form and consistency under 3 different managers. That's obviously according to the Daily Mail. Some reports, I think it was Sky that I saw, saying that United would want around 60 million quid for him. Do you think he's worth 60 million? Would you want to sell him for 60 million? And do you think Tottenham would go for that kind of, maybe not a swap deal, but a kind of a, we'll give you maybe 50 million in Sancho or whatever?
There's obviously a player there, Jadon Sancho. We've seen it in a United shirt sporadically. We saw it at Dortmund, where he was mint. But there's issues. I mean, the kid had to, I'm not knocking him. So I said this at the time, you're mentally not well. That's the same as if you've, ripped your Achilles or whatever. You can't just fix that.
No.
Just go, let's just go away for a week and come back, you'll be right. No.
Have a tablet, you'll be all right.
Yeah, no, it doesn't work like that. And we need to start treating mental health, if it is mental health, because we don't know for definite, just as seriously as we treat physical health. It's just as important for anyone, including sports people. So I get, United did that, and I think it's a good idea. But he came back from that when you presume he's now ready and he's fit and he's able, and it was still very much up and down. And I think with Sancho, whenever we've seen a couple of good performances for him, where you think Spurs away or whatever, or was it one of the ones? Was it Bournemouth later on? Not Bournemouth. I can't remember. There's one towards the end of the season as well, where it might have been Chelsea at home, where you think, oh yeah, he's back in it now. Or it might have been Fulham, sorry, at home. And then the next game, City in the cup final. Quiet, subbed again. Yeah. There's some games where it's been a stinker, severe, awful. Chelsea away, like really bad. Yeah. Like where you're looking at him and everyone, he's trending on social media and not for the right reasons. And you're thinking, something's going on here, he's just having one. And I wonder how long it gets to the point where you go, we have to move him on while we still get something. Or do you think, no, there is a player there, and if we do stick with him, he will find that consistency, he will find that confidence, he will find that productivity that we saw at Dortmund? Because one thing this is sort of indicative of is the way Manchester United have been over the last sort of 9 or 10 years as well, since Fergie retired. Because what happens is, someone like Jose Mourinho or Louis van Gaal will come in and he'll go, right, I want this player, that player, this player, and he'll bring in the Schneiderlins and the Schweinsteigers and the whoever else, the Memphis Depays. Jose Mourinho comes in and goes, don't fancy him, don't want him. He'll bring in it was his first round was Mkhitaryan and Pogba's and Zlatan and I think Bailly, was one of the... That was a window. And then Ollie comes in, and then Jose brings in the Lukaku and Matic. Ollie comes in, don't fancy Lukaku, don't fancy Sanchez, another Jose signing, doesn't fancy, some of the players that Jose comes in. Then you get Ralph Rangnick come in, we'll forget about him, didn't we? And he's like, don't know about these players, I'll play Elanga, or I'll play whoever. Now you're getting Eric Serra's coming in, and he's going, well, Sancho and maybe one or two others that were brought in under Ollie, not really keen on them. It's a cycle that just keeps going around and around, and it doesn't get us anywhere. Now, the only way to break it is if we fully back this manager and stick with him. Give him a few years. Say, right, look, he's obviously had a good first season. Let's make some changes. If next season doesn't work out, we'll still stick with you. Now, it's unlikely because we get new owners, so I don't think they're going to have the patience. But that's what it's going to take, because you can't go around this cycle, because it doesn't work.
And also, that point you made there about letting players get into a stage where they've been underperforming for so long that United can no longer get any money for them. And I know they left on a free, but this is sort of part of the lack of interest in these players. Paul Pogba, Jesse Lingard, Nemanja Matic, Andreas Pereira, Lukaku, I suppose we did get good money for him, but he's one of the few examples of a player that we sold after one bad season. And we managed to get, 60 odd million for him, which is almost, 80% of what we paid for him. But a lot of these players, you let their value and you let their reputation and their confidence drop so low by not playing them but keeping them, that you end up getting nothing for them.
No.
And then your net spend and this whole thing of like, well, United spent as much as City. Well, they have, but we should have spent even more because we should have got 45 million for Pogba 18 months earlier when it was clear he was going to leave anyway because he'd been speaking about Real Madrid, this, that and the other. Like, one of the things that it annoys me, but Guardiola has done, and it doesn't annoy me, obviously, that Ferguson did, Beckham, Van Nistelrooy, Roy Keane, Jaap Stam probably wrongly, but part of this trend of you don't rot on the vine at Man United.
No.
You go while you're still good enough. Well, people go, oh, that's an interesting one. Pep did the same with Sterling. He did the same with Zinchenko. He did the same with Jesus. And he's probably going to do the same with one of those centre-backs because if they're getting Gvardiol in, Laporte probably won't be there next season. Laporte 2 years ago was considered one of the best centre-backs in the Premier League. They're going to sell him this summer or, an equivalent. Because name me a player at City who's been there too long and is shit now.
No, there isn't one. There isn't.
You can go through, even this current United team, you can pick 5 or 6 without even thinking. Yeah. Like, we have to get to a point where you don't get 3, 4, 5 years to prove yourself. There's no, and this is not a dig at Jesse Lingard by any means, but just using him as an example. He fell out of the first team. He then got a loan to Nottingham Forest. West Ham was phenomenal for West Ham.
100%.
They wanted to buy him, and we went, no, we're keeping him. And then didn't play him for 12 months. To the point where his brother's on social media saying whatever it was about him being captive or something at Man United. Like, why didn't we sell him after that West Ham loan? He's surplus to requirements. You're probably going to get 15 million, or we let him leave at the end of a season where he doesn't play for free. You just think like, and that's not me sitting here saying we need to sell Jadon Sancho. If the manager sees something in him, stick with him, definitely. But if you don't, why are we doing this thing where it's like, give him another year? It's like sympathy FC. Like, if really players aren't performing on the pitch, we need new players in. Because you don't, generally speaking, it doesn't take a player 3, 4, 5 years into a club career or into a transfer and then they start getting good and they get world class. When has that ever happened?
No.
A season, 18 months maybe, but usually it doesn't take someone 3 years to get in it. Like, you're either in it or you're not. And I just think United have wasted so much money on players, on wages of players who didn't want to be there, on basically losing out on potential transfer fees because we've let them completely lose all reputation, all confidence, all form. It's not fair on the player, and it's not good for Man United. Like, we need to do better than that.
The Paul Pogba one was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because there's a player who had a value. He did have a value. Yeah. There was a time when you could have got a lot of money for him.
I reckon if you'd have sold him 18 months or 2 years, you'd have got 65 to 70 million quid for him in 2020.
And what did we 21. Do? We just, by the end of it, was it Rangnick was the manager in his last season? There was talk that Pogba didn't even want to play. There was talk, people questioning, was it Anfield where he came off injured? Yeah. Saying, was he really injured or does he just not fancy it anymore? And I don't know. But there's a player who's clearly unhappy. Yeah. Doesn't want to be here. And if he wanted to be, he'd have stayed. He didn't. Yeah. And yet we just let him run down his contract and we get nothing for him. Why? When that's a saleable asset that you could get something for, rather than, like you saying, just keeping him for the sake of keeping him. Now, Pogba, you can at least go, okay, he had something left to offer. But you're right, with the likes of Phil Jones, with the likes of Nemanja Matic to a certain degree, we signed him on a long-term deal after he had about 3 good games. We extended his contract.
Signed 2 contracts in 18 months. He signed a 1-year extension or something like a 2-year extension and then another 1-year extension. Like 18 months later, having played like 16 league games in the meantime, he got a boost. He's still here now.
It's so bad.
He barely got a game on his loan for Marseille. Then he got, was it a 10-match suspension for kicking someone's heart out or whatever he did? Did you see that? Where he kicked someone in the chest so hard that like the world snapped in half. And then now we can't shift him. Like, he's been injury prone and not getting in the first team for 6 years. Jose bought him.
The thing is as well, with a lot of these players, you can pick out highlights like Bailly's had some good games in the red shirt. He has. Jesse Lingard's had some great games in the Emirates and all that. Pogba has. Yeah. But we pick those games to, you remember when he did this and when he did that and he still got it. When you look for the consistency, and a lot of these players, just it isn't there. No. A lot of it might be they want to leave. A lot of it might be they're not feeling at Old Trafford anymore. But for whatever reason, it isn't there. When it isn't there and there's something to offer to another club, get rid of him.
Yeah.
Get him moved on. I'll go through some of the comments because there's loads of people in the chat.
Yeah,
Moshin Hanif says Pogba, Ronaldo, Maguire, Sancho, De Gea, all off our wage bill. If Sancho has another poor season, value will go down even more. Sell now. Ozzy Gamola has been a member of the academy for 11 months. Says keep the faith with Sancho. He deserves another chance. We can't just give up on a talent which is suffering from an obvious dip in confidence. Abhinav Verma says Harry in, Harry out, obviously a reference to Maguire and Kane. Z3 Music Official says I don't think it's a sympathy thing. I think it's a, oh dear God, we've been screwed over so many times by the transfers we've made. Just hold on to what we know thing. They are gun shy to get burned.
I mean, it shows that they're gun shy because look at the way they're selling the club. They have drawn it out. Indecision, one more round, we'll give you a bit longer. That's how they operate on a football side as well. When it comes to buying and selling players, everything drags on, everything's slow, everything's laborious, and in the end, we cave in and give people what they want. Like what the Glazers are doing with selling the club, one more round, come back, this, that. It's exactly how they operate in the transfer market. It's plodding, dawdling, and we'll wait a bit longer and see. It is. They're gun shy, and it's making United worse.
Whitterbeer's got a question. Do you think that Deleu's contract was too long? He's just signed a new deal, hasn't he? I mean, personally, I don't mind that because that's a young player. He's mid-20s, 23, 24. Yeah. Played quite a lot under Erik ten Hag. And Erik ten Hag's watched him, knows him. It kind of makes sense to me. It's when you're getting players who are touching 30 who are getting these long-term deals. Players who, for some of them, not even in the manager's plans, and they're getting long-term deals. Yeah. Like, didn't Phil Jones sign a new deal when he wasn't even playing?
Yeah, Phil Jones signed a new deal under Wally.
Yeah.
That is mental. He hadn't been a first-team regular, Jay, for 7 years when he signed that deal. When was it? Phil Jones and Smalling, when was their good season? 15-16?
Yeah, I think so.
That was 6 years ago. Yeah. Then, when he signed it. Like, what is that? Why did Matic sign a new deal? Like, some of the deals are just ridiculous. I mean, I think there's some links to Sancho and Brighton, but it's being reported in the Sussex Express.
What? Like go on.
I mean, but the problem is, so this is the Sussex Express, right? Which sounds like a train. Yeah. First of all, and secondly, according to reports, and they don't link to those reports, so they are literally just saying.
Well, they've got their own sources, right?
Have they?
The Sussex Express. Let's have a look at this.
All aboard the Sussex Express.
Yeah. I think if you go on the Sussex Express...
Go on.
Yeah.
Easy for you to say.
I love this as well, right? The top story on the Sussex...
Guess? Yeah. It's going to be something to do with a National Trust landmark.
Oh, you're close, you know.
What's it going to be? Local meadow interrupted by burger van.
You in the right kind of ballpark.
Okay. Church tower.
Yep.
Refurbishment vibe.
It's that kind of thing. It's basically a picture of a cat and a dog. R.I.P. Jimmy, by the way. My cat passed away on Friday.
That's horrible.
So I know it is. Says, these adorable dogs. I don't know why it says these adorable dogs when it's got a picture of a cat.
Look at these adorable dogs, eh?
Are looking for loving homes.
Like a smaller sort of female dog, isn't it?
Also, right. So that's the main story. These dogs are looking for homes with a picture of a cat. So I don't know how reliable their sources are. And then
Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah. The other stories are Macmillan Mighty Hikers take on stunning South Downs Way to raise vital funds, so it's charity, we get that. And then the other one is a question: did you see the lanterns floating above Crawley Council? Right, I'm gonna stick in a
based on those headlines, and that is their homepage. So one's to do with a cancer charity. Yeah. One is to do with calling cats dogs for some reason, and the other one is, did you see a lantern? I'm going to guess their sources ain't that great.
Well, let's have a look. I've gone on to the Jadon Sancho story, and it's Frankie Elliott who's at least he's got a name on it.
Yeah.
He's the lad that's wrote it. Yeah, according to reports, the Red Devils are now accepting bids for the 23-year-old.
Okay.
And Brighton are one of the clubs interested in signing the England international. Okay. Nice. So
the reports, Jay.
Yeah. The Seagulls had apparently made inquiries about Sancho last month, which were refused by United. However, the club's change of stance has led Albion to believe he's let himself down there with lack of proofreading. Have a chance. You need a word there, brother.
Yeah.
Listen,
or
I did it on a thumbnail the other day. It happens to the best of us.
You need a word or a why.
Yeah. have a chance of securing the deal with a record-breaking bid, and then he's just got some sort of stats about Sancho. The tricky wide man has made 79 appearances for the Manchester side.
Tricky wide.
Hey, that's a sentence. There's a sentence straight out of the Joey Tribbiani school of let's use a thesaurus.
Yeah, I love it when you're not allowed to repeat the same thing twice. So
tricky wide man.
One of my dad's favourites is there was an article about bananas.
Yeah,
and it was something like the popular curvy yellow fruit. The curvy yellow fruit.
You can't say bananas again, so you're curvy yellow.
No, we don't need to say curvy yellow fruit. We don't need to call him the tricky wide man.
Tricky wide man sounds like someone who sells you dodgy gear out the back of a van.
Yeah.
The tricky, I can see him stood there like smoking a roll up. The tricky wide man has made 79 appearances for the Manchester side, scoring 12 goals, but has found himself out of favour with manager Erik ten Hag, starting just 26 of United's mammoth 62-game season.
So there's no report on what the reports are. Is there not a link you can click? Because usually it says according to reports, you click that. So it doesn't even quote the reports.
Frankie Elliott does his own research, right? He's got his own sources, yeah?
Right.
Don't worry about that. He doesn't need to go run into the Mirror or the Mail.
He does need to go run into the Mirror and take a long, hard look in it. That's what he needs to do. There was a time...
Sorry, Frankie. Us journalists at Sky, I feel for you, bro. We've all been there. It might be work placement and they've gone, write us 300 words on some
Yeah, but that's not my fault.
Sport. So
I'm reading this.
Hey, do you know what I mean? The tricky wide man.
There was a time when newspapers wouldn't report on stories and sources that had been found by other papers. That was, for the longest time, that was the rule.
Yeah, it was.
If the Daily Mail have got a source on Sancho going to Brighton, no one else would report on that. You get your own sources and you do it. Now, in the last sort of 15 years post-internet, you see these transfer roundups that newspapers never used to do. There was never according to reports. Now we've gone from that to just not even quoting the reports, just suggesting their mere existence is enough now, and then a load of stats. So anyway, you might go to Brighton based on who knows.
You know what? You may as well have put there. I'd have probably respected that more if you'd have put according to speculation on social media, which covers all sins, doesn't it? That covers a multitude of sins. When you say reports on social media or rumours circulating on social media is my favourite.
Because he's not allowed to say social media again, he would say the digital chat app.
The bird app, as Ronaldo Brown calls it. Tobias Nielsen makes a good point. We can't sell Sancho before we know what happens with Anthony. We had that breaking news last week that Anthony could be in a bit of trouble. We don't know what's happening with him. We also, this paints a poor picture of Manchester United Football Club, doesn't it? But we also don't know what's happening with Mason Greenwood either, do we, at the minute? No. Which may affect certain decisions moving forward. It's not a great scenario to be in, but it's just where we are.
The situation surrounding that, again, points to this indecision, this gun-shy, this timid, fearful, back foot management of the club. Not the manager, but the people managing the club. We've known about this situation for 2 years. We've known that the charges have been dropped, or there was no case to answer, or whatever the exact terminology around that situation was, for nearly 6 months now. How have we not come to a conclusion? How do we not know what we're doing with this? That should have been announced last week after the season ended. As soon as the FA Cup final, fair enough, don't do it before that, we don't want distractions. As soon as that is done, Mason Greenwood is being sold, is being loaned, is being reintroduced, whatever it is. We have our opinions on what we want it to be, but the fact that we have made nothing, no decisions, is just symptomatic of exactly what we're talking about. And if we move on, the goalkeeper situation.
Just before we do that, Andy Tate's in the chat, he says, rumour has it, Jay, Cherry Pepsi, love emojis. Thank you, Andy.
Yeah, you're going to sign Pepsi Max Cherry. You've not had that in a while.
I have it now and again just to mix it up, but I've moved on to other ones. Broaden my horizons.
Yeah, you like a little Fanta Fruit twisty now.
I do, yes. Thank you.
This is from Dharmesh Sheth, Sky Sports.
Yes, friend of the channel.
Saying that United have been looking at Diogo Costa, David Raya and Andre Onana, 3 goalkeepers. Ooh. And just...
Top 3 out of them. Well, not top 3, sorry. Rank them, they are 3.
Costa seems to have the most overall potential. I like what I saw from Onana in the Champions League final was sensational.
Yeah, it was.
I don't know how often he repeats that kind of performance, but that was brilliant. And then maybe Raya at the bottom. I
agree with that.
Yeah,
I think that I agree. First 2 paper thin margins. I think Raya's.
Yeah.
Producer Ethan, who's a goalkeeper, isn't a fan. Are you, Ethan? Is he there?
He's through there.
He's through there. He's not a fan, are you, Ethan? David Raya, nah, he said. Yeah. David Raya, nah.
So Geordie. But just on the goalkeeper situation, There were other reports coming out today, and not to absolutely Sussex express myself and not give a source on it, but I can't remember who it was from. Oh, it was Mark Ogden from ESPN.
Okay.
Who was saying that there is no guarantee that we're even going to extend De Gea's contract. It's assumed that it's going to happen, but there's some suggestion that he might be kind of keeping an eye out for one of these big Saudi league offers, because as we've seen, that a lot of sort of high-profile named players who are at the end of their contract are being given these gigantic offers, Kante and Benzema and that sort of thing, to go to the Saudi league. Maybe De Gea would be up for one of them. But the goalkeeper situation is another one that is back to this thing of we are letting fruit rot on the vine a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, maybe that's a harsh phrasing, but just to use it, the terminology rather than, particularly saying that, and, it's rotting. But the performance from Onana and Ederson in that Champions League final, they're, both teams' biggest game of the season. Those goalkeepers were sensational in that game. Both of them. Onana's passing was unbelievable under pressure. Like, not just like, the most simple passes for a goalkeeper are obviously short ones to the fullbacks and the centre backs when there's no one in front of them. That's the easiest one. But the first pass on the list of like tricky pass, but most keepers should be able to make it, is striker is closing in and you clip it over them to the fullback.
Yeah,
that is standard. De Gea struggles with that at times. He can do it at other times as well. Onana was pissing them out like that's just,
bread and butter.
Bread and butter. There were points where he'd be closed down by two men and he was playing balls into the centre of the pitch, through the lines. Like, that sort of pass that Martinez makes, really driven low on the floor, past the halfway line, into the feet of a Bruno or whatever. He was doing that. Yeah. He was playing it on the floor across the halfway line.
He went on a run at one point as well, didn't he? He went on a little run towards the end of the game where he got the ball and he carried on running and then he gave it to someone. And also where Haaland clips him when they both got butts in the end. But one thing, I don't want to feel like I'm digging out De Gea, but you have to call it as you say it. Like the time when Onana he's carrying a ball and he goes, I can't remember the exact scenario, but Haaland clips him. Yeah. So Haaland gets a book, but Onana's in his face. What do you think you're doing? Pushes him, so he gets booked as well. But as that sort of
there's a fight
bravado
there.
And fight, which De Gea goes in his shell a little bit, which worries me.
And the thing with Onana is he's not even considered to be a world-class goalkeeper. His saving is sort of good, slightly above average, but not great. He was good at Ajax, but someone that often talked about having big potential. I think he got a drugs ban, didn't he?
Right.
And then left. But with his feet, he's exceptional. Yeah. And that game is an example of how much did he help navigate around City's press. Constantly. Yeah. He made Inter Milan so much harder to beat and so much more likely to score because of how good he was with his feet. And we need a keeper that can have performances like that. And you see Ederson at the other end, the 94th minute or whatever, coming out 15 yards out of his goal and collecting the ball over a crowd of players to win his team the Champions League. Like, the save against Lukaku was a bit of luck, I think. Good positioning.
I thought it was overrated in the commentary.
Yeah, they
were going on like it was like, that Gordon Banks one against Pele.
Yeah, not even
it's
close.
Like it was at him.
Yeah, Lukaku headed it at Ederson's knee and he stopped it. It was a good
It
save.
was a poor header.
It was. But
it really was.
Ederson coming out and doing that, they win you games.
No,
those moments win you games. And neither of them had any world-class saves to make, really. I think that Ederson did well, like I said, for the Lukaku one, but it wasn't world-class saves. It's the rest of their game made so much difference to their team. Yeah. And we need a keeper that you can rely on for those big performances. And some of those passes Onana made were unbelievable top level sort of midfield level passes, not just he's decent for a keeper. That's the standard you need to be at. No,
I agree. I've in the super chat says the Glazers seem like people who have this rule that if you don't make decisions, the universe will make it for you. Proper Nepo babies. BT commentary is awful, says Duncan D's nuts. Daytona says Lukaku misses all by himself. Jamie Gillespie says Ederson didn't even see it. I'm sort of everyone referring to that that Romelu Lukaku chance that he had in the second half. Whitterbird says David De Gea talks are dragging on like this sale. Jace Parker says, afternoon Jay, miss you mate, miss you. I miss you too, bro. Brian Casey says, of the 15 players that need to leave, how many do you realistically think will leave? I mean, there's quite a few I think could go. We sort of know. Obviously, Jones has gone on it already.
Yep.
I think Butland was on loan. He's gone. Vegos was on loan. He's gone. What he said, John. Sorry. Tommy Eaton, is he still around?
Still around for now.
Still around.
Yeah.
Eric Bailly, is he going?
He's gonna go.
Tellers, is he done?
Yeah.
Brandon Williams, I know we're going to get to him in a minute.
Go.
He had a bit of a funny one, didn't he, on the weekend on socials. McTominay, I think we're looking at him.
Yeah, one of McTominay or Fred looks like.
McTominay looks like the one who will get the most money.
Yeah.
So it does seem more like. But I mean, yeah, one of the other. Sabitzer obviously is gone because he's on loan. And Dean Henderson as well. I think he's going to make a permanent switch to Nottingham Forest. Ilanga, has he got a future at the club?
Probably not.
Doubt it.
Did you say Eric Bailly?
I'm not sure. I don't think I did.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, put him
either
in.
Way,
either way,
it doesn't
matter.
10. I think all of them will leave.
Yeah.
I don't think De Gea will leave.
No.
Unless he gets a mega offer. And if he does leave, again, he's another example of someone that will be leaving on a free. When there were times when it looked like his style of play was becoming slightly old-fashioned, and he was still worth a lot of money, and instead we gave him a new contract that was the most highly paid goalkeeper in history, and still is the most highly paid Spanish player in history, and maybe isn't.
When
now,
you look at the quality that those two categories have had and have,
yeah,
it's pretty startling. That's not a criticism of David De Gea, but the fact we made him the most expensive or highest paid goalkeeper,
a slightly ropey
Spanish
season as well.
Player ever, it just baffles me.
Yeah.
Danny says, why McTominay or Fred when we should replace both now? It's just whether they both will go in it. I think that you look at it and you go, yes, maybe argue we should replace both. Will he let two midfielders go plus Sabitzer as well?
Yeah.
Is he going to do that?
Maybe Donny Van der Beek. There's another one we didn't mention.
I forgot about him.
Yeah.
No, I think he's done.
Yeah.
He's done. There's certain players that you think are done, but you don't know. Like Martial looks done.
Yeah.
But you never know.
No.
Honestly, wouldn't surprise me if he's still in next season.
Do you know what? I reckon if we got rid of all those 12 or 13 players we just mentioned then, I honestly think people would understand that at times we might look thin next year. But for the sake of do you know when you've got a plant, a little house plant or whatever, and you leave it and you forget to water it, and half the leaves go brown and it just looks gross.
Yeah.
What you can't do is just put water on it and hope those brown leaves sort of go green again. You have to clip them back and start and leave what is still healthy, what can work. Like United at the minute are this sort of mess of like players who have got no future whatsoever, players who maybe could still turn it around but probably won't, players who want to leave, players who have tried to leave in the past, and then these sort of cluster of really top players. We need to clip around all of these dying little plants. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't make sense the way we're doing it. Just get rid of them, have a squad of 16, 17 players, get 4 or 5 in, and really work on having high quality in every position. Like, again, I hate to go back to it, but you look at City's squad, it's a big squad, they've got a lot of players, but how many shit players have they got?
None.
The only bad players they've got are the players coming through the academy who you think, they're probably not up to it. How many players that they've bought who aren't any good have stayed? It doesn't happen.
You're right. The thing is, I was thinking about this the other day, and it was something Chucky said when he was on the podcast with us, on the Brew Me and Stay. And sometimes when you're a manager, like Fergie did it, you come in, you buy some players, and you have an instant impact. Fergie's first season, I think we finished second, his first full season, which was, big turnaround. First time I think we finished second for a little while. Distant second, I think, to Liverpool, but he's brought in players, finished second. The season after that, we finished 11th.
Yeah.
Like, because he's changing everything. So he's changing the scouting, he's changing the training, he's getting rid of players, good players as well, some of the players he got rid of. He's getting rid of the likes of Paul McGrath and Norman Whiteside for not just on-pitch issues like injuries and stuff, but some of them were going through a time of it and needed a move away or whatever. So there's this transitional period that's going on where his second season was less successful than his first, but it's the long-term goal that you're going to have to make changes, bedding in some youngsters, trying to see if certain youngsters are up for it, getting rid of certain players who can do a short-term job, but you need to think of the long-term game. His third season, we eventually won the FA Cup, but we went through our longest ever winless run there. This is what piqued me sort of memory of it. From November to February, we didn't win a game. Imagine that, Manchester United left us in 15th as well, and the pressure was on him. But that season won the FA Cup, and the rest is history. My point I'm getting to is that there is a scenario where Erik ten Hag, next season we finish 4th and don't win anything, which is a step backwards in terms of what you've achieved. but he doesn't sign the 30-year-old Casemiro, the 30-year-old Eriksen, the loan move for a 29-year-old Marcel Sabitzer, the loan move for a 30-year-old Wout Weghorst, all this short-termism. He does the more long-term thing. Mm-hmm. He goes, right, Diallo, you're going to get some minutes. Right, Palestra, you're going to get more minutes. Garnacho, you're going to get more minutes. We can't get the striker that I want, so we're going to wait a year and get the one in that I want, rather than just getting in the I know it's not going to happen, but the Neymar or the whatever, the short-term one, we're going to wait a year. So you have that, and that's one thing that we might have to be prepared for. It might be that next season is more of a transitional one, because he does think a little bit more long-term. And part of that, going back to what you were saying, is this overhaul of getting rid of a lot, where you go, look, I can't get rid of 16 players in one window. No. I'm going to get rid of 10, the ones we've mentioned, and then there's another 5 that are on the way out. Some of them will go in January, some of them will go next summer, and then the following summer we're bringing in more players. It's this thing, because I don't think as well this team and this squad can, even with additions, catch City in one season. I don't. I hope I'm wrong.
It would rely on City having a poorer year, wouldn't it?
Like, it's going to take more than a year to sort out.
I think even with a Harry Kane, we're not a 95-point team.
I don't think we are, bro.
No.
And it pains me to say that. I would love it if we were wrong, if I was wrong and we did. I'm not saying we can't challenge and be the closest to them. That could happen.
And there could be a situation.
Yeah, there could. Of course, it could.
Yeah,
no one predicted that Arsenal were going to go on the run they did, and Leicester were going to win the league and things like that. It can happen. But I think we might have to look at it and go, look, how far behind this team are we? A bit. We need to do some more long-term. Because if we go and buy another load of 30-year-olds or another couple of 30-year-olds, and I'm not saying Harry Kane, but, that's... We buy Harry Kane and then we buy another 30-year-old. Then in a year, you've got Casemiro and he's playing Eriksen, he's playing... There might be a scenario where he goes a bit more long-term. And if that is the case, then fair enough. I can live with that as a United fan. I can live with us finish 4th if the following season won the league. Yeah. Of course I could. Yeah. I could do it if we have to wait 3 years to win the league again. I've been waiting for 10. But I just worry about this board, especially with new owners, that if we don't have what is considered a successful season next season, new owners with their own ideas might go, this dude's not for us. We're not waiting. We want instant trophies and instant Champions League success and all the rest of it. Yeah. And I'm not sure that is the case, because even the greatest manager that I've ever seen, the greatest manager that's ever lived, Sir Alex Ferguson, needed time because the club was almost rotten top to bottom in terms of the training, the scouting, everything, the culture of the club. And there's a bit of that United still.
Yeah, and also...
I don't mean we're drinking and stuff, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, when Fergie came in, how long had it been? Sort of 16 years since we'd won a title?
Yeah, he came in 87, or 86, sorry, but the end of the halfway through the season, and we've not won it since 1967.
Yeah, so it's been 19 years since we won a title, which is, even now, it's only been 10 years. And in the meantime, we've not been relegated like we had been then. Like, the expectation was lower. And even then, Fergie only just kept his job with those ups and downs.
Yeah, bro.
Ten Hag has to be more consistent than Fergie was, because the situation is different, the expectation is different. But I agree with you that next season progress isn't always linear. You have to look at what is being done. And part of me thinks, if in the next 3 years he gets rid of every player who's currently in the squad that shouldn't be there, and we've named 15 of them without even, most of those 15 aren't even first team players. If he gets rid of all of those over the next 2 years, or 3 years, his first 3 years, and we are left with what is good about Manchester United, and then he brings in some more, I'm happy to, like you said, I'm happy to be patient and think, right, this is how United are going to be good for the next decade, not... He's got 18 months, and if he don't win anything, he's gone.
Fergie did it again, in 2004. That, in fact, the summer of 2003, we won the title. Yeah. But you had Jose coming in at 2004, probably a little bit further down the line. But when in 2004 you had Arsenal, when that season where they drew 12 games. Then 2004, Jose had record number of points, meanest defence ever. Yeah. Retained it, and everyone's thinking Fergie's done out here. But during that period, he'd been buying the likes of Rooney and Ronaldo, and I think Rio Ferdinand as well. Yeah. Obviously, Rooney and Rio were established Premier League players, but it was with a view to more long term. Look, let's start thinking about the future. Yeah. And I might have to take a couple of seasons. And Fergie still wanted to win things and expected to challenge, and he did. But it was a little bit more long term than what we usually see from Fergie during that period.
That sort of between 2002 and 2005, where he sort of made that next team, and United weren't as good.
Yeah,
you got in the likes, like you said, you've already mentioned Rooney, Ronaldo, Rio.
Yeah.
Then we also got in Evra, Vidic. People like Sahar, who didn't stick around for as long.
No,
but
he great player.
As part of that, we also got rid of Van Nistelrooy, Beckham, Kane, three of our best players from that era before, from the just turn of the millennium team, are now gone, and you've replaced them with people who we don't really know. Then it's Carrick in next is the sort of one of the next pieces.
That was the final piece for the league, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
So we got him in, and then we won the league.
And if we don't do that now, we are going to be another 10 years in the same position.
Because that's the irony, innit? We've always gone for the short-term fix to catch City or Liverpool or whoever quickly, and it's ended up being to our detriment. Because we don't do it that first season when we've got the 35-year-olds in and the 34-year-olds or the whatever.
Yeah.
Then next season you got to replace them, or they're not as good. They stay around, and the second season,
Cavani, second season,
terrible. Zlatan had picked up a notch, to be fair, but his second season he was almost,
Ronaldo,
useless to us.
Second season he's throwing his toys out and leaving.
It's like this whole sort of, well, we need to do it now. It doesn't work. Jez Banks says, sorry about your cat, Jay. Animals are way better than humans. Thank you, brother. I agree. A couple of super chats as well. Danny, I think he's been pounding the super chat, says, why McTominay or Fred when we should replace both now? Again, sorry, I think I might have read that.
Yeah.
We can sell at least 10 and it won't affect the first 11. That's true. He also says sell McFred for 50, buy Casado, Rabiot, 75 million combined potentially. Mason Mount, I know you've got something there for us, because again, this is one that you go, and I sort of talked myself into this because I wasn't a big Mason Mount fan. I'm not going to pretend to you I was, but it's like, all right, the manager wants him, we can get him relatively cheap. He's a Champions League winner, he's a proven Premier League player, he's still relatively young. It all makes sense. But now it gets dragging on, and then you think, are we going to end up spending like 80 million quid on the kid?
I know.
Which is no longer the bargain, no longer all the reasons I've given you where you go, well, that's good. You think 80 million quid for someone who, didn't, most of us, or certainly I, didn't even rate that highly.
I think 50 to 65, I think anything under 70 is seen as a chunky but not massive transfer. I feel like 75 or 70 to sort of 90 is considered a big transfer, and anything above that is your sort of marquee name. But once you tip over into sort of 70 plus and then 80 plus, you're expecting one of the better players in that position in the world.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That I know football is changing, and for 100 million you get a Jack Grealish or a Darwin Núñez now, where you used to get a Ronaldo or a Neymar. I know things are changing, but if we're spending 80 million, think how heavily that 80 million price tag has weighed on Harry Maguire. And, his performances haven't been good enough, etc., etc. But if he was 35, 40 million, the criticism would be so less harsh because the contrast of performance to price wouldn't have been so vast. If we get Mason Mount for 80 million, he has to start every week when he's fit. Yeah. He has to be one of our best players because he costs more than Sancho, he costs more than Bruno, he costs more than Casemiro, more than any of our back five. Like, the only player in the team that costs more than him actually is Anthony, sorry. Yeah. Like, all right then, prove it. Yeah. And that's not fair because he's not that player and he's not worth that. No. And that number will be held against him. 80 million flop, 80 million failed to impress all the time.
No, you're so right, bro.
Not just for United's money, finances, we need to get a striker, this and that. For his career at United, we cannot spend 80 million quid on him.
Because you're right,
crush him immediately.
The comparisons with Maguire and Van Dijk were instant. Yeah. Well, Liverpool bought Van Dijk and then they got to the Champions League final and they paid 75 million. So Maguire must be better then. Yeah. If he don't play better than Van Dijk, and he's not in the same class as Van Dijk. No. And it's like, it's not his fault he cost us 80 million quid. No. But we had to live with that, and he had to live with it. And you can't just go around saying, well, it's not my fault it costs this much money. You've got to sort of live up to that price tag, and it can weigh heavy on you. And you're right. I think there's a lot of players who, it's bothered them, and Mount, for that sort of money, it goes from being a steal or a deal that makes sense. I shouldn't say a steal, to one that makes no sense whatsoever. No,
and that was what Romano was saying, by the way. The tweet was, United have sent messages to Mason Mount confirming intention to insist in the next few days. Personal terms not an issue as the player is keen on the move. Chelsea keep asking for an 80 million euro, he's saying, fee, which is probably 75 million quid, 70 million quid. This is why the deal was not progressing this week, but it's not over.
Maybe there's a scenario, I don't know how keen he is on United, where we have to wait a year for him. because he's out of contract. Again, it's not great.
No.
But if he's a free player in a year and he's still only 25, then you'd probably have him.
Yeah.
I don't know what sort of year he's going to have. He might be just warming the bench all season, but
maybe,
I don't know.
We don't know the transfers, the sort of the selling style of Chelsea's new ownership either, do we? You know,
I don't think they do, to be fair.
Well, exactly. Some clubs make it really difficult. We all know, Daniel Levy's a sort of well-trodden example of a bloke who likes to either not sell people or get ridiculous money for them. Not that he actually does it that often, but you know what I mean. That's the persona. We don't know whether Todd Burley is going to be really difficult to deal with. Maybe he's someone that insists on really high money and never sells. Maybe someone that insists on it, but if you go later in the window, he'll give it for 50 million. They have to sell players. Chelsea can't go into next season with a 29.
But this is the thing with Todd Burley. It's a great unknown, isn't it?
Yeah,
because he's now in this position, like you said, where people want his players, and he's been that erratic with buying players. He's every chance that he'll go, well, if you don't give us 80 million for Mason Mount, I'm gonna sell him to a ferry company, and he's going to work on the ferry all week or all year. And you're like, what? What are you on about?
They're saying 80 million because that's what they'd spend on him. That's what you'd spend.
If you don't give us 80 million for him, then he's going to be working on the oil rigs for the next year. Yeah. That's what I'm going to make him do. And you're like, well, you can't. Well, I will.
Well, I'm going to.
Yeah, that's it now. He's on an oil rig. You can't get to him. You're like, what are you doing? That's not allowed.
Anything is possible.
Yeah, this is the guy that wanted to have a North versus the South regular game. It's like, what are you on about? Honestly, the guy is just off his head. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't think that. I don't think we can pay 80 million quid for him. It remains to be seen whether we can have some movement.
Should we talk about Brandon Williams?
Yeah, on
this
Saturday night.
Ferdinand thing.
Saturday night, when Inter Milan didn't win the Champions League.
Yeah.
Brandon Williams had a little bit of a funny one on Instagram at Rio Ferdinand. I think Rio Ferdinand had been slightly complimentary to Pep Guardiola. Yeah. And Brandon Williams wasn't really impressed with that, was it? So he first of all, Brandon Williams put "nobody wants a sloppy seconds" on Instagram, talking about the fact that, again, someone's following in our footsteps. We were the first team to do the treble, and now City have done it. Nobody wants sloppy seconds, which sloppy seconds is quite an old saying, isn't it? It's not something you hear very often from adults, but fair enough. Okay.
From adults.
Yeah. And then there was a little bit of it wasn't back and forth, it was just him having a go at Rio. What was the other one he said? That he said, I can't, sorry, the cameras, can you move that up? I can't see it because there's a camera in the way. So he said, bet you don't congratulate if you was player. Keep with 3 E's, I think, is it? Or 4, I can't see that. 3 E's. The same morals. And then he went on, you don't praise simple as fakes, money emoji. After Ferdinand had said City's players had become immortal by winning the treble and labelled them a fantastic team. Where do you stand on this?
Surprising, isn't it? It's weird that he's done that because you never see active players for a team sort of having a pop at.
He did some on social media at Norwich, didn't he?
Did he?
Yeah, didn't he have a bit of a dig at some of the Norwich fans or something? Or
one of the Norwich heroes.
There was something.
Was it Bill Oddie?
Mate, yeah.
You can say what you want
what's funny about a body?
But you do not slag off Bill Oddie when you are in the grounds of Norwich City Centre. Okay, that is just a rule, I'm afraid. It's a bit weird. You don't normally see players having a go at club legends for their punditry. Yeah, very. So I don't know what I make of it. It seems unwise to me, but I kind of respect him for having the sort of bollocks to do it.
This was from 2022. Norwich investigate Brandon Williams' Instagram post as on loan Manchester United defender shares middle finger image after West Ham defeat, and he'd done an Instagram post where he'd put "what a beautiful day," and then the location is Suffolk, and he'd put "easy up at Norwich City FC" with his middle finger up as well.
So what's the first line of that article again, sorry?
Norwich investigate Brandon Williams' Instagram post.
When it says Norwich, do you think it means the team or do you think it means the city
council? The city council.
Norwich as a whole are investigating this, okay? This will be brought up at council meetings. A little middle finger emoji on an Instagram post. Norwich investigates.
I think as well, this is following the reports that supporters have tried to visit his home and he also posted a picture of his dog, saying for the people that followed me, he's always awake. Listen, I
should sleep between 16 and 18 hours a day, just healthy guidelines.
I don't mind players losing their head a bit.
No, I don't.
Because he's a United fan, Brandon Williams, and it's not easy to see that going on. And he's just done what he's done. Maybe he's had a few at the time, whatever. It's Saturday night, he might have done, but he's posted it, and I don't think it's the end of the world, to be honest with you.
No, I don't think it's that big a deal, really.
In a way, I think a lot of United fans can relate to it because you're hurting, you're angry, and then you see a player.
You don't want anyone to say anything nice about City.
And it's like Rio's hardly said the most ridiculous thing. I think there was a lot of people that were annoyed though with the coverage from what I saw, because I didn't watch the coverage. I watched the game. And
Can we get to Wally of the Week immediately?
Yeah, do the Wally of the Week. Go on, let's do Wally of the Week.
Right, Wally of the Week for me.
Have we got a graphic for that?
Yeah, we have, big time. We're on it. Come on, here we go. Wally of the Week for me has to be the BT Sport coverage of the Champions League final. Not
right, okay.
Mostly, actually, it was just bizarre, and I'm not particularly criticising sort of Rio in particular, but like
go on, bizarre in what way?
So Jake Humphrey was obsessed with making it all about him. It was his.
I refuse to believe that.
It was his last day, sort of presenting on BT Sport, and my God, did we know about it? Like, talking about the 15 year, no one gives an absolute shit. No one cares. That's like the spider in the bath going, right, lads, I'm moving out. You're like, oh yeah, you were just a spider in the bath.
Yeah.
You were a precursor to professionals talking about football before the actual game we care about.
Yeah.
No one cares, especially not when, no offence, and obviously I want any distraction from the fact that City are about to win the Champions League, but the big thing that's happening tonight isn't you quitting. So we don't need to hear anything about that.
Also, quitting is being kind to him.
Yeah, being quit.
Yeah.
So first of all, if you're going to say anything, maybe in the last link you say, thank you for the last 15 years for having me on BT Sport. It's been a pleasure. City of this, good night, whatever. So we don't need to hear about that. There was this weird thing where there was a sort of like Joleon Lescott just kind of yelping, crying, not really saying, no, I'm really nervous. I'm more nervous than when I'm playing. Thanks, Joleon. Like, he was just this sort of bloke in an armchair being with a microphone shoved up his nose like every 5 minutes.
I heard that. I said that at the time, yeah, because I was watching at home, and I said, why did they keep going to him?
I don't know.
And it was very much like a fan zone thing, wasn't it? From a player who, all right, used to play for City, but he's not like I won't consider him a City legend. 100
games for City.
Yeah,
it's like it's a City. He's not a legend, is he? He's in the sort of index
like
of a City book.
A Phil Jones for United, or a Chris Smalling type.
Nice.
Really?
Yeah, I think maybe a Smalling.
Yeah, somebody played 100 odd games, whatever, but won a trophy, but he's not like.
But they're acting like he's
up there with your companies and your Tories for them.
They act like he was the City mascot.
Yeah.
When really he played some games towards.
It was weird that because I was almost distracted by that, but it did feel a bit like. Jolie, how are you feeling?
Yeah.
Who cares?
He's probably feeling fine because he doesn't really give a shit, if we're honest. He cared more that Everton stayed up. Then there was this other whole angle that the same thing that ITV had been criticised for, BBC had been criticised for the FA Cup the week before, where no matter what happened on the game, it was all about how great City were. You can't slag City off. You can't mention the fact that Haaland hasn't turned up in 2 finals now. It was all, aren't they great, into this, into that. Like, Inter Milan are the better team in this game.
Yeah.
They're the ones making the chances. They've got, clearly more threat. They're doing really well. And it's a spirited attempt from Inter. No, it's that was all they got. Oh, a bit spirited half from Inter Milan, wasn't it?
Bit weird.
But really, it was all like how great City were all the time. They haven't been great in this game. You're allowed to say they weren't the better team. They were lucky. Yeah. Inter Milan missed huge chances. Yeah. Man City had 1 chance and scored it. They weren't great. Say that. It was bizarre. The whole thing was just like an absolute beer bong tipping City down your throat the whole time. Be honest and don't have this weird collection of presenters that don't make. And then Steve McManaman just saying weird things all the time. God, it was just bizarre.
I don't rate McManaman as a commentator. It's weird because he won a lot as well as a player.
Yeah.
I think he's always been a bit odd.
And
anyway,
he was when City played Real Madrid in the Champions League semi-final, he wanted City to win.
Yeah.
The only time you've ever been successful as a player was at Real Madrid.
I know.
Why the fuck do you want City, who is an irrelevant footnote to your career? Why do you want them to beat Real Madrid? What are you doing? You didn't come through the ranks at City. You played for him at the end of your career when you were shit. Didn't win 2 Champions Leagues.
Yeah, of course he did. He scored in the final.
Like, how did he want them to win? What is going on?
I think there's very much a bit of, and this goes on with a lot of ex-players. Like, it's knowing where your bread's buttered and all that, and keeping people happy. And there is, he played. I'm just getting the stats here for man. I don't want to go get too distracted by this whole sort of Steve McManaman thing, but I'm just looking at his stats. For Real Madrid, he played 158 games. For City, he played 44.
Yeah.
And he didn't win anything at City.
Of course he didn't fucking win anything at City. He was there before they entered the cheat code. Like, it was like you said, he knows where his bread's buttered, and it's the same with a lot of pundits who have got any link to Man City. You have to now be all City all the time because that's your thing.
Yeah.
They've got so few sort of legends because the only players that have ever played for him and won anything are basically still players because it's happened in the last 10 years. The only one that's retired who ever won it was Company. All the rest of them still play. Yeah. So you're not going to get David Silva on comms because he's playing.
Yeah, and I think
if he has retired, he's just
Aguero. I don't think does anything like that. Anyway. Abdullah Ibrahim says, "Can you do?" Sorry, I didn't give my Wally the week.
Yeah, go on. Sorry, mine was just the general odd Champions League coverage from BT Sport, and some of the camera angles and that were odd. They just missed stuff.
Yeah, I'm gonna. Do you know how I got with a Wally of the week?
Yes.
Right, and listen, Romelu Lukaku had a stinker, right? He missed some chances, but the amount of racist abuse that kid got on Instagram was horrible.
Was it?
It was relentless. Someone put a screen recording of it on Twitter, and I'm sorry, right? And I've seen players do things for my club that make me want to just, stop supporting the club, stop following football altogether. But I would never even enter my mind to racially abuse someone or to be homophobic or whatever towards them. And there's these people that go on Instagram all the time. It's like their go-to thing. Yeah. We saw it with Marcus getting sent monkey emojis after a game. It's like, who are these people and what are they doing? And why has Instagram not got a grip of this? It's meta, innit, Instagram? Yeah. Like, why is this still happening? Yeah. Why every time a black player has a bad game or makes a mistake or doesn't score a penalty or misses a sitter, are they getting racially abused on social media? Why are we still here? We can do all these wonderful things with AI and everything else. You can do so many things, but you can't stop morons racially abusing sports people when they make a mistake. It's not okay, and it needs sorting. It really does, because we're having it every single time. You know as sure as the day is long, they'll be getting racist abuse. Right now, before they get back to that dressing room, their phone will be blowing up with racism, and it's just not okay. And listen, I understand it's the biggest game in Inter's time since Jose was manager. It's huge, and he missed a sitter. Doesn't excuse it. No. There's no caveat. No, but he didn't have a sting. It doesn't matter. I don't care. I don't care if he got sent off as soon as he come on. I don't care if he took a dump in the middle of the pitch. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't matter. You shouldn't be getting racially abused, and he still was. Sorry, I know we've gone on. Abdullah Ibrahim says, "Can you do a one-off Wally of the season too?"
Wally of the season. God, that's been thrust upon us, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's got to be Todd Burley, hasn't it? If we're honest, he's
Yeah, that's a really good shout.
One of the top 4 best teams in the country, and have been pretty much consistently for 20 years now.
Yeah.
And he's made them a bottom half team and spent 600 million quid in the... He's had the biggest spend of any transfer window in any club's history, in the history of football. Yeah. No team has ever spent more money in a single year, ever.
Yeah.
And he's made them the worst they've been in 30 years. That is monumentally shit, isn't it? And twinned, actually. Don't you see like a town sign, like Worksop twinned with somewhere in Germany?
I think you're going to go with my one.
Twinned with Frank Lampard.
I was going to go Lampard. I was. Because I thought Lampard, it's very rarely you get a manager who's been a disaster during a season for 2 clubs. Yeah. Like usually there is a disaster at one and they don't get another job during that season. No. Now he was shockingly bad at Everton, so they got rid of him. But because he's a Chelsea legend and James Corden had told Todd Burley get him back, and Todd Burley doesn't know what day it is, brought him back. And then he had at one point one of the worst managerial records I think in history, because he'd lost so many games at Everton and lost so many at Chelsea.
He had a 10% win rate at Chelsea.
Yeah, it was amazing how bad it was. Yeah, so I agree. I would have just gone Lampard, but you're right. Todd Boehly having a stinker. Thanks to everyone who got involved in the chat and the comments. Really appreciate it. We are going to be back tomorrow. We've got the news in the morning, and we're also going to have our reaction to City's treble.
If you want to call it that.
You can really class it as that. Joe, where can people find you?
Joe Smith 93 on Instagram and Twitter.
Yeah, make sure you're checking them out. You know where to find me, Jay Motti. This has been the Paddock Podcast. That's been Joe. I've been Jay. Thanks for watching.